The latest Newspoll by the Australian newspaper shows that what we predicted on this show for some time now in terms of what would happen to the mainstream Conservative parties in this country, the Liberals and the Nationals, is in fact happening. Instead of the coalition's push to the left flank and Susan Lee's insistence on a modern approach, helping them pick up voters and pick up young people, it's had the complete opposite effect. The coalition parties have seen men running a mile and younger Aussies abandoning the party in droves. It's worst in the eastern states. Only 25% of voters in New South Wales now support the coalition. Remember, at the end of last year, Peter Dutton's Conservative strong approach had the coalition on 40% primary vote and rising on track for victory. The party's weaklings on the left moved in and asked for the message to be toned down to save unwinnable inner city seats that had fundamentally changed forever anyway. And with muddled messages and bad campaign leadership, Dutton looked weak, inconsistent, rudderless, and as a result, he of course lost. Blind Freddie could have seen it coming. There's no gender gap in who likes the coalition either. They're equally disliked by both genders. It's 29% of men and 29% of women who say they'll vote for them. Joining me now to discuss all this is longtime One Nation Senator Malcolm Roberts. Malcolm, thank you for coming in and joining us on the other side.
Great. Thank you for having me, Damian.
So all this bad news for the coalition has been somewhat good news for One Nation. The Australian reports that One Nation's increased its primary vote since the federal election from 6.4 to 9%. That's almost a 50% jump. In New South Wales, you're on 10%. Other Conservative and Libertarian-leaning parties and independents have also seen their primary votes jump as well. I think in New South Wales, the collective is 20% now, which is almost at the level that the coalition's at. I mean, interesting times for you.
Very interesting and really satisfying. There's a global move, there's a national move, there's a Conservative move, and there's a One Nation move. They all need to be factored in. Actually, some of the polls we've seen have actually been higher than the numbers you've quoted, Damian.
Okay,
which is marvellous. In New South Wales, for example, I think One Nation is at 16%. Wow. But internationally, people are tired of the fake Conservatives, the Tories, the Republicans, or the Republicans are a bit different because the party is not. It has quite a bit of variety across it. Same with the Democrats. Yeah. Some of the Democrats will vote with Trump, so that's understandable. But Trump is not really a Republican. He's not really a Democrat. He's an independent, and you have to be registered as a party in one of the two parties to get in. So he's there. Nigel Farage is there in Britain. Pauline Hanson's been here for a long time. So that's the first thing. Globally, people are saying, we've had enough. We've had a gutful of the lies from the pseudo-conservatives. We want the real conservatives.
I think people can see through the fakeness too. I mean, they're sick of the fakeness, the lack of authenticity. One of the things that non-supporters of Trump said initially was, I don't agree with Donald Trump, but I like the fact that I know where he stands and what he stands for, and he seems authentic, and I can believe that when he says something, he pretty much means it. Even if he's a bit fast and loose on the factual side of the truth, they know that he's genuinely coming from a place of consistency, and you know what you're buying. You know what
exactly, Damian. I've got more grey hair than you have by a long way, but
not
I'm no. So I'm aware of Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan. I was in my early 30s in Ronald Reagan. Late 20s, mid 20s, in fact, with Reagan. And Reagan and Thatcher. And I'll always remember comments from more than one person, former Brits who've moved out here, and they used to vote Labor. And they told me, Labor in Britain, and they told me that they voted Labor until Thatcher came along. They said they didn't like all her policies, but you knew where you stood. Yeah. And it's the uncertainty removed. So the global trend, the trend within the country, because of what you said with the fake Liberals. I think what's happens when you get a Conservative, whether it be Abbott or Dutton, is that the Wets and the Liberals undermine him. It makes it very, very hard. So I don't put the blame with Dutton. I put the blame with, well, he should have called them out. But anyway, with the party itself. And the third thing is that Pauline's been around almost 30 years, 29 years. Yeah. And people have seen her, what she said back in 1996 is coming true. Everything she said. And she's been so consistent. They tried to jail her. They tried to...
They did jail her.
That's right.
She actually served a couple of months or something.
She got out on appeal. They infiltrated her parties, her party, destroyed it from within. That's Labor and Liberal. They also called her a racist and other labels, which are completely false. I mean, you're not one nation because you have division. You're one nation because you believe everyone has the same entitlements. So she's far from racist. But what they did was they called her racist in the hope that people would not vote for her. And that worked for a while. But now people are saying she's not racist. They realize that. And they're saying, I want someone who's truthful and accurate. And so they're moving to Pauline because of that. And also, quite frankly, our policies, and I mean this sincerely, are the best I've ever seen in any political party in this country. They're comprehensive, holistic, and they're targeted.
Now, the Newspoll analysis reveals that particularly male voters seem to be moving away from the coalition under Susan Lee. And if Peter Dutton and ScoMo had a women problem, then Susan Lee's got a men problem. No one seems to care that much about that, though. But anyway, the gains that you've made, though, as opposed to the gains of other independent and minor right parties, they seem to have picked up men. But you've got gains from both genders. You're doing something right in terms of appealing to women as well. How do you read that?
Well, it's not because we've got a female party leader. It's because what we say, we go out and listen, and I mean really listen. The Coalition and the Labor Party pretend to listen, but people know they're not listening. They can't listen because they've already got their policies stitched up, and the policies are almost identical between Labor and Liberal. And we've been calling them the Uni Party because that's what they are. Pauline is the only opposition to the Uni Party, and people can see that. So that's something. But with regard to men, it's older people, younger people. Older people probably saying, my grandkids have got no chance of getting a house. The younger kids are saying, in their 20s, are saying, where do we get a house? How do I get a house? How do I even rent a house? How do I find a house? How do I rent it? How do I have children without the house?
And women are concerned about the future of young people, obviously. And so moving from gender to age breakdowns, if we look at those, the Liberal and National Party votes fallen the most among older voters, which is surprising. It's very grim, though, among people aged 18 to 34. So I think in March it was 28% of that group, that age group, and now it's only 18%, 6 months later.
Less than a fifth.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah. These policies are appealing to everyone right across the board, all ages. But they understand the energy problem has been manufactured. And what do the Liberals do? Instead of, and I talk with Tony Abbott, I talk with John Howard, I talk with Corey Bernardi when he was a Liberal, and other people saying, why the hell don't you just tell the truth? We know you're skeptic. Why don't you come out and just say it? They can't mount the argument. Whereas we've come out and said climate change is a scam, it's rubbish, and demolished it. And now it's coming true.
Well, I think they let the other side set the agenda and then they follow in a frightened way. They're not leading. And if you don't lead, if you don't have a strong position, then you can't really get people to follow you. And I think this sort of fear of trying to play the middle all the time on issues where, maybe there's not a middle and people need an alternative strongly put.
People want the truth. And we have been calling out the truth for ever since I've been in politics, and Pauline ever since she's been in politics. When we're not afraid to say the truth. And what we do is, Pauline's insisting on this. I've always insisted on it because people in my past, people's lives depended upon me getting the data. So we get the data and then we open our gobs.
Another thing that's interesting too is your share of the people aged over 65, which has doubled from 5 to 11%. So you're doing very well with the older demographic. And people say, oh, well, they'll be dead soon, forgetting the fact, of course, that more people come into that demographic. That demographic doesn't ever go away. The people in it change, but the demographic doesn't go away. And so it's important. I mean, this is an important part of our community. These are the elders. These are what we used to consider to be the wise ones that we shut up and listen to. We don't do that so much anymore. We listen too much to the young. But is that a sign that people are maturing into one nation, I guess, or maturing into more conservative ideas still as they get older?
Yes, and that's always been the case. We've been particularly high amongst the aged people over 60, over 65 for quite a while. But what we're seeing now is grandparents coming to us and saying, my kids, my grandchildren cannot get a housing, cannot get a future. They're paying ridiculous energy prices for this scam on climate change. Property rights are being stolen. They're concerned. Retired people have more time on their hands, and they do the research. And older people, I'm a grandparent now. We've got one grandson, but I don't mean this in a negative way, but I've got more time, more interest, more focus on my grandson than on my own children. And then when they were his age.
Sure, you've got more time. That's all.
So I'm very concerned about his future, and then that applies. That's what grandparents are telling us. Where do their grandkids get a house?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because I often think doing this show, and I know you in politics, it's like we swim in a sea of left-wing assumptions, right?
We
The
don't.
ABC. Well, no, personally we don't, but I mean the country does, and we think that just because these people have got the microphones and the television cameras, and that they control what people think, and they have a great influence over it. There's no question of it. But ultimately, I think people are waking up. I think we are seeing a shift. I think it'll be like America, where that shift comes politically before it comes through the media, or but I think there's something being missed by our talking classes, our chattering classes, in relation to what is really going on at a grassroots level and what people really care about, right?
You're absolutely right. Everything I've agreed with everything you've said so far. The chattering classes they are a manifestation of the left. They're a vehicle for the left. I don't like calling them left and right because the terms are confusing.
Yeah, it's simplistic.
It's really,
we have to some way of.
It's usually I use the terms control versus freedom, and the right is usually free, and the left is usually control.
Yeah.
All of the major control freaks throughout human history, well, with very few exceptions, have been lefties. Have been control side of politics, communists, socialists. That's, you look at Stalin, Mao, Hitler. Hitler was a lefty. He was a socialist. So they've mostly all of them have come from the left side of politics, the control side of politics, and they weave a very attractive tale because it's emotionally based. It's not factually based. And what they do is they create victims. They set up victims, whether it be transgenders or whatever. And then they appeal to those victims. And what they do is essentially cripple those people, Damian. Those people are made to be victims, and they're in victimhood. That means they're dependent on the government. And I don't mean just financially. I mean morally and in their own psyche. So it's really very crippling what they do.
They want to create a welfare state.
Exactly.
They want the dependency on government.
Exactly.
So they can control people.
Yeah, and in my first speech in Parliament in 2016, September, we're not supposed to, in our first speech, criticise people. Not directly anyway.
Yeah.
So I refrained. But I looked across at the Greens when I said part of the agenda in Parliament is anti-human, and I looked specifically at the Greens. And then my second speech, I labelled them as anti-humans. So the lefties are very much anti-human. If you look at Stalin, Hitler, Mao, Maurice Strong, lefties, all of them lefties, and they're anti-human.
Malcolm, I want to ask you, what is One Nation's plan to build on this momentum? I mean, you've got this great sort of turnaround happening now. Could this be the moment that we, because a lot of people keep asking me, when are we going to see a great party emerge that's going to dominate the conservative side of politics in Australia?
How do we keep the momentum? We keep doing what we are doing. We go out and listen, and then we speak accurately as representatives of the people. That's our basic job, to serve the people by putting in place policies and actions that meet people's needs, but above all, listen to people so we can understand their needs. That's the first thing. The second thing is keep telling the truth. We're known to be outspoken, but factually correct and data-based, so we'll keep doing that and keep developing good policies. Our policies are resonating with people of all ages.
I think that's a very important point, that keep it fact-based, keep it as truthful as you can. At least you're putting a consistent message out, a consistent story out, and people can see it and they can trust you. More than any other comment I get, and you probably hear it too, is, why don't the minor right-leaning parties all join? Why don't they all join?
There are subtle differences, sometimes marked differences between us and the micro parties. So that's one thing. And in democracy, you keep parties, ideologies, positions alive. You don't try to bury them. So
it doesn't hurt to have a bit of variety. We've got that preferential voting system, so that helps because people can, use it to kind of vote in the
exactly. And so the way to work together, and we've said this for years now, is to recommend that our voters who vote for us vote for the other the micro parties, 2, 3, 4. Put them ahead of the Conservatives.
Yeah.
Put the fake Conservatives, the Liberal Nationals, and the Labor Party. So that's one way of doing it. But the other thing it's very important to remember is we reached out to all the micro parties, and they all said, yeah, that'd be great. Recommend our party be preference. Yeah. Where did they put us? Rennick put us 6 in the seat of Rankin. He put us behind the behind the Labor Party.
Oh, okay, that's not.
And on the Senate, he put us number 6. We put him number 2. Same with the other micro parties. And the reason is, and we said this before the election, Damian, that we were the only party that was capable of getting a senator elected in every state. And we got 3 states senators elected. We came very close in each of the other 3, 2 incredibly close. And so
What people might not know who watch this show is that in Queensland, the Senate race was very tight for the last spot between you and Jared Rennick.
Well, it ended up not being tight at all. We didn't even rely on his preferences.
Right. So you cleanly won.
And he merged with Catters. So when you look at his personal vote, it was very small as a party. But the other thing to remember is that
that division is not helpful, though. I think a lot of people would say, that we would like to see you and Jared working together. But we understand that people have different views in politics. Obviously, your decision to put him second is a signal that you stand by your values. That it's not about the political game in the end, right? And I guess that's where, he's probably got to consider where he stands, and I'll give him the opportunity to come on and talk about that again sometime, I guess. But yeah, no, I get it. It's tough. And
he also told some lies about One Nation, and kept them going, even though I pointed them out, and he mentioned that he agreed that they were lies, that he kept them alive. So Pauline doesn't do that. I don't do that. We tell the truth, and that's what we're famous for.
Okay, well, good. Keep it up. We need more truth in politics. There's no question about that. I want to just play a clip of Donald Trump speaking we haven't talked much about the issues, but I do want to discuss quickly with you immigration. We've got time to do that.
Sure.
I'd like to play this clip of Donald Trump's speech to the General Assembly of the United Nations.
Oh, fantastic.
In which he said, he was talking about the question of immigration and open borders, and where the United Nations is sort of, the ideas of the United Nations permeating through national governments has sort of led us. So let's have a listen to that one, John.
The UN is supposed to stop invasions, not create them and not finance them. In the United States, we reject the idea that mass numbers of people from foreign lands can be permitted to travel halfway around the world, trample our borders, violate our sovereignty, cause unmitigated crime, and deplete our social safety net. We have reasserted that America belongs to the American people, and I encourage all countries to take their own stand in defense of their citizens as well. You have to do that because I see it. I'm not mentioning names. I see it, and I can call every single one of them out. You're destroying your countries. They're being destroyed. Europe is in serious trouble. They've been invaded by a force of illegal aliens like nobody's ever seen before. Illegal aliens are pouring into Europe. Nobody's doing anything to change it, to get them out. It's not sustainable. And because they choose to be politically correct, they're doing just absolutely nothing about it. And I have to say, I look at London, where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor, and it's been so changed. So changed.
Yeah, the idea that anybody talking about immigration is a racist, or anybody suggesting that, that's got to shift. And he says there, we've got serious social problems emerging in places like London now that anybody can see, that are the result of too fast, too much immigration, and trying to ram cultures together that don't really coalesce, right?
Yes, there are a number of problems with mass migration. I'm a migrant. I was born in India. Okay, my mother was North Queensland and my dad was Welsh, so he's a migrant as well. So we've got nothing against migrants. Migrants have built this country, literally, especially in the early days. But we've used to have standards on who could come in. Now we don't have those standards. We're letting terrorists in, and we're condoning them, keeping them here, even when they break the law. So number one is the problem is mass migration. He called it an invasion, and so it is. And it's a deliberate invasion, and it's orchestrated by the UN and the World Economic Forum. So that's the first one. That's
so that sounds like a wacky conspiracy theory, Malcolm. But the World Economic Forum is real. It's a global think tank, if you like, or a meeting every year of the top 1,500 corporate leaders and the top 1,500 government leaders from around the world. They meet in Davos every year. They have other meetings, but that's the main one. And agendas are set.
Yes, correct.
Stuff is direct. It might not be, Klaus Schwab in his little room with his hat. Well, it could be, but I hope it's not. But it's certainly a subtle. There's a subtle message that's sent out about, like the United Nations. And the reason we criticize the United Nations is because they've strayed from what they're supposed to be about into this territory of, the sustainability goals, which are quite left wing when you look at them, right? They shouldn't be doing that stuff. And the WF does the same thing. Here's some guidelines you might want to follow. Oh, here's some capital to follow those guidelines.
There are two things to remember about the UN. It was created to be a vehicle for transferring wealth from we the people around the world to the globalist billionaires and the globalist corporations, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, First State. They're interconnected. So that's the first thing. And that's been stated by many, many senior UN bureaucrats, particularly Maurice Strong. The second thing about the UN is that it's a vehicle to put in place an unelected socialist global governance. Now, that we haven't got time to unpack that, but I can unpack that. I've unpacked that in writing many times. Their model for unelected socialist global governments, they've stated, is the EU, which is a unicameral parliament where the bureaucrats do the dictating and the rest of it is the parliament is the facade.
They're not elected, yeah.
So these are actually what's going on. The second thing is that it's destroying our culture, mass migration, and that's deliberate because then when individuals, basically there are two ways of structuring, just two basic structures for society, human society, family and nation state, and both are being destroyed deliberately by the United Nations. These are campaigns. Their Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, are just ways of getting parliaments, and unfortunately our parliament is complying with it, passing legislation to put in place those controls. The third thing is it's the quality of the people coming in. We used to have migrants coming into this country who immediately went to work and improved our productive capacity. Now we've got grifters coming in, terrorists coming in. We've got people coming in who are saying that they want to kill us. I mean, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah,
and the fourth thing is multiculturalism. The strongest nations in the world are not multicultural, they're monoculture. They tolerate other religions, they tolerate other races, they tolerate other nationalities. But above all, they're proud of themselves. Taiwan, Japan, Korea, South Korea, China, Singapore, the United States. People said in the early days, Bob Hawke did it, and especially John Howard, America is multicultural. Rubbish. America, above all in America, you are American. You're very proud of your Polish ancestry, your Asian ancestry, your Indian ancestry, but you put them to the side because, number one, you're American. What we're doing is having our culture and our cohesion destroyed in front of our eyes, and it is deliberate because that way the nation state falls into the background. Borders being smashed in Europe, and the strong leaders like Orban in Hungary and the new president in Poland and others are saying no, we'll close our borders, and that's what we've got to do. We've got to send home around 100,000. People here illegally, 100,000, and that's just the start. We need to get into remigration, send people back to where they came from.
All right, Malcolm Roberts, thank you very much.
Unless they're productive.
Unless they're productive, yeah. Well, that's a reasonable ask. Productive and peaceful and willing to integrate and assimilate to a certain extent with Australian culture.
Yeah.
It didn't come out of nowhere. All right. Malcolm, thanks so much for your time. Love to have you back on the show and talk more. Senator Malcolm Roberts there from One Nation in Queensland.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks.
A great way to support the other side is to support our sponsors like SmartKits Australia, the best supplier of do-it-yourself prefab home renovation kits. And it's not just carports. SmartKits do decks, patios and pergolas, flyover roofs and insulated roofing too. All prefabricated, fully engineered and delivered anywhere in Australia. And if you're not too handy, they'll install it for you too. Get onto it. smartkits.com.au. That was a segment clip from our weekly Friday night news show, The Other Side, which you can watch in full by simply going to YouTube and searching up The Other Side Australia. Then you'll find our full shows playlist. You can also find all of our full shows and our segments on our own website, othersidetv.com.au. That's othersidetv.com.au. Help us build a whole new Aussie media by joining us over there and signing up for the exclusive side.